My name is Rebecca Hayes, and I'm about to tell you what happens when a man and his mother underestimate a woman who documents everything, not because I'm paranoid, but because I'm a research librarian, and checking sources is what I've done professionally for 12 years. Welcome back to Revenge Camera Stories, where the people who try to erase you from the picture find out the camera was rolling the whole time. I need you to understand how I got here, because Marcus's version, the one he told his family that same night, has me as an unfaithful wife who tried to trap him with another man's baby. Here's mine. Marcus and I met when I was 29, married at 31, and spent the first 4 years of our marriage in the easy rhythm of two people who wanted the same quiet life. We bought a small house in Columbus, Ohio, with a mortgage we could actually afford. I worked at the university research library. He managed IT for a medical supply company. We talked about kids the way people talk about someday projects, a vague future thing that felt both inevitable and far away. Then I got pregnant, unplanned but not unwanted, and for exactly 6 weeks, Marcus was the man I thought I'd married. He came to the first ultrasound, he told his mother Diane, over Sunday dinner with genuine excitement. He held my hand through the morning sickness that lasted all day. And then something shifted. I didn't see it happen all at once. It was small things first. The way he'd go quiet when I mentioned baby names. The way he started working late 3 nights a week when he'd always been a leave at 5 person. The way his mother started calling me more often, asking careful questions about my schedule, about whether I'd been traveling for work conferences, about a colleague named David I'd mentioned exactly once in passing. By my second trimester, Marcus had moved into the guest room. "You need your rest," he said, which sounded considerate until you realized it meant he could stay up until a.m. on his laptop without me seeing what he was looking at. I asked him twice if something was wrong. He said work was stressful. He said he was fine. He said it with the same easy lie people use when they've already made a decision and are just waiting for the right time to execute it. The security cameras were my idea, installed when we bought the house after a string of break-ins in our neighborhood. 4 cameras, front door, back door, driveway, and one in the living room aimed at the main entrance, all linked to an app on both our phones with cloud storage. We'd paid for 2 years in advance. Marcus had picked the system himself. He'd installed it himself. He'd just forgotten, in all his careful planning with his mother, that I still had access to every camera, every timestamp, every saved clip going back 24 months. That Tuesday, I came home from work at 5:30, tired in the way. You're tired at 7 months, pregnant when your back aches, and your feet have disappeared, somewhere below a belly that feels like it belongs to someone else. Marcus's car was in the driveway along with his mother's silver sedan, which was unusual. Diane didn't usually visit on weekdays. I came through the front door and heard their voices in the living room, low and serious, the kind of conversation that stops when someone else walks in. Except I didn't walk in immediately. I stood in the hallway, one hand on the wall, and listened to my husband and his mother discuss me like I was a problem they were solving together. "You can't wait any longer," Diane was saying. "The further along she gets, the worse this looks for you. You need to act now while you still have deniability." Marcus's voice, quieter, uncertain. "What if I'm wrong? What if the baby is mine and you saw the messages?" Diane cut him off. "You saw her meeting him for coffee. Marcus, a wife doesn't hide work friends unless they're more than friends. You confront her tonight, you tell her you know, and you make her leave. If she fights it, we have the photos, we have the timeline, we have everything we need." I stood in that hallway with my hand pressed against the wall and felt something cold and clear settle into my chest. The same feeling you get when you find a citation error in a research paper and realize the whole argument is built on a source that doesn't exist. They were wrong, completely, factually, documentably wrong. There were no messages. There was no affair. David was a 60-year-old library sciences professor. I'd had coffee with twice to discuss a grant application, but Marcus had decided, or Diane had decided for him, and the truth wasn't going to matter because they'd already built their narrative and printed it on letterhead. I backed out of the hallway quietly, walked to my car, and sat in the driveway with my phone in my lap. Then I did what I do when something doesn't make sense. I checked the source. I opened the security camera app and scrolled back through the living room footage, looking for previous conversations I might have missed, and I found them. 5 recordings over the past month. Marcus and Diane, always when I was at work. Always in the living room where the camera had a clear angle and clean audio. Timestamps, dates, every word saved to the cloud. I listened to all of it sitting in my car in the driveway of my own house. Diane had been building this for weeks, seeding doubt, showing Marcus evidence she'd compiled from my social media, from my work calendar she'd somehow accessed, from a professional photo of me and David at a library event that she'd cropped and interpreted as proof of an affair that had never happened. She had convinced my husband methodically and carefully that I was unfaithful, that the baby wasn't his, and that I needed to be removed from his life before I could trap him legally. By the time I opened the car door to go back inside, I had a plan forming in the cold, clear space where my grief should have been. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to plead. I was going to document every single thing that happened next. And I was going to make sure that when the truth came out, it came out in front of everyone who mattered. I walked back into the house with my purse and my phone and found Marcus alone in the living room, Diane's car already gone. He looked at me with an expression I'd never seen on him before, something between pity and disgust. And I knew the script had been finalized and he was about to deliver his lines. "We need to talk," he said. I sat down on the couch we'd picked out together for years ago and folded my hands over my belly. "Okay, I know about David." My face must have shown genuine confusion because he hesitated for half a second before pushing forward. "I know you've been seeing him. I know the baby isn't mine, and I'm not going to let you trap me into raising another man's child." I could have screamed. I could have cried. I could have pulled out my phone right then and played him the footage of his mother, coaching him through this exact conversation. Instead, I asked one question in the same voice I used to verify publication dates. "Do you want a paternity test?" He blinked. "What? A paternity test? If you're genuinely concerned about paternity, we can do a non-invasive prenatal test. Blood draw from me, cheek swab from you, results in a week. Do you want one?" For just a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Doubt, maybe, or fear that I'd called a bluff he hadn't expected to be called. Then his jaw set. "I want you out of this house tonight." "Tonight? Pack what you need. You can come back for the rest later with a police escort." I stood up slowly, carefully, one hand bracing my lower back the way I'd learned to do when standing up had become a whole operation. "Give me 10 minutes, he nodded, already pulling out his phone, probably texting his mother that it was done. I went into our bedroom and packed a bag, but not the way someone packs who's been blindsided. I packed methodically. Medications, vitamins, my laptop, chargers, file folders from the home office with copies of our marriage certificate, mortgage documents, bank statements, insurance paperwork, everything that proved I existed in this house, in this marriage, in this life. And I left my phone recording propped on the dresser, aimed at the bedroom door. When Marcus came to check on me at minute 8, it caught him standing in the doorway, and it caught the exact moment he said, "For the record, you brought this on yourself. I won't raise another man's kid." Then I walked out of my own house at 11:47 p.m. in the rain with a garbage bag and a purse and 7 months of pregnancy. And I drove to my best friend Lauren's apartment 3 miles away. She opened the door in her pajamas, took one look at me, and pulled me inside without asking a single question until I'd stopped shaking. Then I sat at her kitchen table and told her everything, and while I talked, I uploaded every single security camera clip to a private folder in the cloud, time-stamped and labeled. Lauren watched me work with her arms crossed and her mouth set in a line. What's the plan? Paternity test, I said. Public results, legal documentation, and making sure that everyone who heard Marcus's version hears the truth in a format they can't ignore. You're scary when you're calm, Lauren said. I'm not calm, I said. I'm just done letting people write my story for me. The next morning, I called Dr. Sarah Chen, my OB, from Lauren's couch and explained the situation in the same clinical tone I'd used to request an interlibrary loan. I needed a non-invasive prenatal paternity test. I needed it processed as quickly as possible, and I needed the results sent in a format that could be shared with multiple recipients. Dr. Chen, who'd been my OB for 2 pregnancies that had ended in miscarriages before this one, didn't ask me if I was sure. She asked when I could come in. The blood draw took 15 minutes. Getting Marcus to provide a DNA sample took longer. I texted him from the clinic parking lot. I'm doing the paternity test you wanted. Dr. Chen needs a cheek swab from you. Can you come to her office today? He didn't respond for 3 hours. When he finally did, it was one line. I'll come. This doesn't change anything. He showed up at PM with his mother. I wasn't there. I'd specifically arranged to have my appointment separate from his. But the clinic's security cameras, which Dr. Chen later agreed to share with me under patient advocacy protocols, caught everything. Marcus, uncomfortable, filling out paperwork. Diane, confident, telling the nurse that her son was doing the right thing and that some women will do anything to trap a good man. The nurse, to her eternal credit, smiled tightly and said nothing. The cheek swab took 30 seconds. The lab processed both samples with a rush order I paid for out of my own savings, and 5 days later, Dr. Chen called me with results. I'd known were coming since the moment Marcus first accused me. 99.97% probability of paternity. Marcus was the father. The baby I was carrying, the baby he'd thrown me out over, was his biological child. Do you want me to call him? Dr. Chen asked gently. No, I said. I want you to send the results exactly the way I'm about to specify, because here's what Marcus and Diane didn't know. When he'd provided that DNA sample, he'd signed a release form allowing the results to be shared with both parents and any additional recipients the mother designated in writing. It's standard on the clinic's forms, buried in paragraph 3, the kind of thing people sign without reading when they're sure they already know what the results will say. I'd read it. Of course I'd read it, and I'd very carefully filled out the recipient list. The results went out via certified mail and email on a Friday afternoon, 2 days after Marcus had thrown me out, and they went to 7 people. Marcus himself, Marcus's mother, Diane, Marcus's father, Robert, his sister, Michelle, who I'd always gotten along with and who'd texted me twice asking if I was okay, my parents, who'd been calling every day since they'd found out what happened, and the family group chat that Diane had created years ago and never bothered to remove me from, where she'd posted, the night Marcus threw me out. Please keep Marcus in your prayers during this difficult time as he deals with a complicated situation. The subject line on every email was simple: non-invasive prenatal paternity test results. Rebecca and Marcus Hayes. The PDF attachment contained the lab report, the clinic letterhead, the timestamp, and the conclusion in bold text across the top of page 2. The probability of paternity is 99.97%. Marcus Hayes cannot be excluded as the biological father. I know exactly when Diane opened hers because the family group chat, which had been silent since her prayer request post, suddenly exploded. Michelle first. Mom, did you just get what I got? Robert. Diane, we need to talk now. My mother. Bless her. So when Marcus said the baby wasn't his, he was lying, or was he just wrong? Because the math seems pretty clear from here, and then nothing from Diane or Marcus for 40 minutes. I sat on Lauren's couch with my phone in my hand, watching the messages pile up in real time, and felt something that wasn't quite satisfaction. It was more like the feeling you get when you've been citing a contested source for months and someone finally publishes the peer review that backs you up. Vindication, maybe, or just exhausted relief. Marcus called at 6:30. I let it go to voicemail. He called again at 6:45. Voicemail. At 7, he texted, "We need to talk." I made a mistake. I waited until 8 to respond. And when I did, it was one line. "Your mistake is documented. We'll talk through lawyers." Then I blocked his number and called the attorney. Lauren had already researched for me a family law specialist named Amanda Cross who did not, according to her reviews, waste time on people who wasted hers. "Mrs. Hayes," she said when I explained the situation, "do you have documentation of the eviction? Security camera footage time-stamped, and audio of him telling me to leave, of the paternity accusation? Audio and video of the accusation. Audio of him and his mother planning it in advance." Amanda was quiet for a beat. "You recorded your mother-in-law coaching your husband to throw you out? The security camera in my living room recorded it. I just happened to save the files, Mrs. Hayes," Amanda said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. "I think we're going to get along just fine." The legal filing went through the following week. Separation agreement, temporary spousal support, and a motion to reclaim sole access to the marital home on the grounds that I'd been unlawfully evicted while pregnant. Attached as exhibits, the paternity test, the security footage, and a timeline I'd built in a spreadsheet because that's what librarians do when we need to prove a point. Amanda said it was the most thorough client documentation she'd seen in 15 years of practice. Marcus's lawyer called her within 2 days, trying to negotiate before it went in front of a judge. I said no. I wanted a hearing. I wanted the footage entered into record. I wanted everyone who'd heard Marcus's version to hear mine with timestamps. The hearing was set for 3 weeks out, which gave me just enough time to do one more thing. I reached out to Michelle, who'd been texting me carefully, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "I'm so sorry," she'd written. "I didn't know. Mom told us you'd admitted to the affair. She said you were refusing to test the baby." I sent her the security footage. Not all of it, just the clip from the week before Marcus threw me out, the one where Diane is coaching him through the evidence she's gathered and telling him exactly how to make me leave before I could legally trap him with false paternity. Michelle watched it, and then she called me, and she cried for 20 minutes on the phone. "I believed her," she said. "We all did. She's my mother," and she looked me in the face and lied. "And I believed her. She's convincing," I said, not unkindly. "She's been practicing this her whole life." Michelle asked what she could do. I told her the truth. "Be at the hearing. You don't have to testify. Just be there." So Marcus knows at least one person in his family saw the evidence. She was there. So were my parents. So was Lauren. And so, because the universe has a sense of timing, was a local reporter who'd been assigned to cover family court that day and ended up with a front row seat to a case involving secret recordings and a mother-in-law conspiracy that read like a television drama. The footage played on a screen at the front of the courtroom. You could hear Diane's voice, clear and certain, walking Marcus through the plan. You could see the timestamp from the night he threw me out, pregnant, in the rain. And you could see the paternity test on the next slide, unambiguous, undeniable, exactly as true as I'd always known it was. Marcus's lawyer tried to argue that the recordings were inadmissible,